verse 2 says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds." Trials of various kinds. He knows that trials are never just one-sided. Wouldn't it be good if it was like maybe a vending machine or something like that, where you just got one trial at a time, and God just waited until you were done learning all the lessons you could from that lesson in that relational problem you were having, before then he sent financial problems, and then before he sent health problems, and then before he sent employment problems. Why does he do that? I don't know, he's God. He's been doing this as long as he's been God, is testing and trying and training his people. And so James says, when you're in this multifaceted, multi-layered, messy trial called life, when the heat gets turned up, consider it joy. Consider it joy. Not because of the trial itself. That's masochistic. It's not as if you gotta put on a big bright face and you pretend that you're just fine. And you know when your cousin gets killed by the Jews, rock up to that funeral singing a little ditty about the joy, joy, joy that you've got down in your heart, and do little circle dances on his grave. Just be happy. He's not saying that. He's saying, consider it a joy. You won't experience it as a joy. It will not feel as a joy, but mindset changes everything. Consider it a joy. You know, he's sort of using accounting language. When you sit down and you're running through the accounts and you think of this time that you're in life, don't put it in the God ruined me section. Don't put it in the debt section. Put it in the assets. Count it as a joy, not for what it is itself, but for what it produces, for what you can see it producing. So look again in verse 2. Count it all joy, brothers and sisters, when you meet these trials of various kinds, for, here's why, you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. So we see already two reasons that we can start considering it joy. Is first of all, because it proves your faith. Secondly, because it improves your faith. So, first of all, it proves your faith. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. This proving is what we mean there in the word of test. In other words, you've come to this point in your life, and you would have said that you were saved, and you had a faith, and you had a belief, and yet you just, maybe you wouldn't bank your whole eternity on it. You've got some doubts. You're pretty sure you're a Christian. And what God does is he brings you into this trial. He turns up the heat so that you can start seeing how word-based, how Bible-based your faith is, and how feelings-based. How personal and inward your faith is, or maybe how much just borrowed from your family your faith is. How genuinely, deeply rooted into your soul your faith is, or how sort of just traditional, like this is my culture, this is what I sort of got taught to do, and I do it okay. I was a choir boy, I helped set up church, I made my way by. Trials start showing you the actual state and value of the faith that you have. It's proving your faith to you. I know this is just going to make me sound extremely white, but since we're doing our old-fashioned stuff, anybody else watch Antique Roadshow when their grandparents babysitted them? There's a couple. If you even know what I mean, then I know you watch Antiques Roadshow, when all these old white people in England would go and rock up to a little estate, and the pros would be there, and they would be testing people's antiques and bric-a-brac and knickknacks. So what you do is you go and find your vase, you find your painting, you find the little weird clock thing with a ballerina on it that some dead auntie left to you, you dust off the dirt, and you take it to these pros, and they sit down in front of a camera and they tell you how much this is actually worth. They prove what you have and tell you what you genuinely have. And there's always two groups of people. There's two groups of people. There's the woman who tries to say, I cannot wait for you to tell me how much this is worth. My friend assured me that the king gave this to her best friend's cousin's friend in person. Okay, the king. We haven't had a king for 100 years. No, I'm sure it was the king of Newmark, of Denway. No, that's not a country. I'm sure this is real. And what they end up finding is that this thing they've spent $300 to buy and wrap up and bring to the market is worth like $12. Sorry, £3, whatever, in England. And then there's the other guy who just plops up some dirty old briefcase on it and goes, I know, but my uncle said it was his favorite, antique, whatever. And they open it up and they go through it like, this is handcrafted, pearl, plates, whatever it is. And they go, you've got 40,000 pounds that you're sitting on right here. You can buy 3 houses if you were to sell this. And he starts realizing, like, I had this all the time. This is what mine is worth. I love watching those two reactions. Sucks to be the first guy, always. And yet that's what proving means. Nobody came up to that roadshow and had their money taken from them or given to them. They were simply made aware of what they always had, and so it is with trials. God is, in the first sense, it's not that a trial itself makes you a Christian or that a trial takes away your faith, but rather it starts polishing it off, dusting off the tradition, dusting off the fakeness, dusting off your own professions, and it starts getting down to the reality. Is this real faith? That is what trials do. And therefore, we should take joy in them. It may be a nerve-wracking process to go through having your faith tested, and yet you don't want to be self-assured that you have saving faith and then be found on Judgment Day to have had damning, untrue, unsaving faith. You don't want to be the guy that grew up in church, said all the hymns, helped lead stuff, served his way through, but had a secret life of sin that you thought this was going to be okay. And because God never tested you, you never saw the true, the falsehood, I should say, of your faith. You don't want to be that man. You don't want to be that woman. And yet if you do have saving faith, if you could be assured that if you would just get it tested, you would skyrocket in value, and your net worth would fly through the roof. If you could be assured of that, then you would willingly receive from the Lord both good and terrible news as trials prove your faith. Therefore, we consider them a joy.